Do you know that people who work in Germany and earn exactly the same amount of money actually have a difference? One of them bring home few hundreds more than another one at the end of the month as the paycheck. And the difference is because they belong to the different tax classes, and in this video I actually want to explain you how German tax classes are working and how they may affect your final paycheck. If you are interested, let's go straight away to understanding what are the tax classes in Germany. We know 6 different tax classes that describe different circumstances, different life setup that helps you to actually increase or decrease the amount of taxes you pay as an income tax. If you know, in Germany it's the progressive tax. The more you earn, the more taxes you pay. Let's take an example of the human being who is around 30 years old, lives in Berlin and earns around 5,000 euro and belongs to the first class. First class is the single person who is employed, having the full-time salary and actually works officially in Germany. If this person earns around 5,000 euro, the income tax would be around 780 euro. It means that after all the mandatory contributions, the final paycheck would be around 3,100 euro, so 3,130 euro to be exact, to the calculations that I've done online. This tax class represents the majority of employees in Germany, but also represents those who are first-year immigrants and moved to Germany regardless of their marriage status. For the first year, they usually associated with the first tax class and pay the highest or almost the highest taxes. The highest is the 6th one, to be honest. But let's go now to the second tax class that represents also a single person, but who has a registered kid. So single mom or single dad. In this case, if the couple is not officially registered, one of the parent belongs to the second tax class, meaning has a registered kid but do not have a registered marriage, official marriage. It means that they are going to pay around 675 euro as an income tax, and after all the calculations with all the mandatory contribution they need to do, they would receive around 3,270 euro as the total compensation for their net salary at the end of the month. Moving on to the third tax class in Germany that represents the married couple. For one of the partner who earns more or whose spouse do not qualify for any earning, or the spouse that recently deceased. So in this case, if this partner in the married couple earns around 5,000 euro brutto salary per month, the income tax would be lower because of the compensation of the 5th class that I'm gonna share in a bit. But in this case, if the married person is in the 3rd tax class, they would pay 410 euro out of the 5,000 netto income per month, and after all the calculation with mandatory contribution, the total compensation would be the highest, 3,500 euro. Around this amount, it would be the net paycheck at the end of the month for the person who belongs to 3rd tax class in Germany. And it usually applies in family where the income is very disbalanced. For example, when one spouse earns 5,000 and another one earns 1,000 euro, for example. In this case, it actually makes sense to switch to this balancing scheme. But if you are one of that married couple who are both employed in Germany and receives similar or equal salaries at the end of the month, it makes sense to just skip the 4th tax class, because that's the tax class that represents married couple who are residents and workers or employees in Germany. In that case, if this person earns around 5,000 again brutto euros per month and is around 30 years old, lives in Berlin, this person would pay around 790 euro euro as the income tax, and after all the calculation with all the mandatory contribution, the total compensation at the end of the month of the person in the fourth class would be around 3,120 euro. As you see, if you would scroll back to the beginning of this video, you would actually see that it's not a big difference to the first class that represents unmarried couple or people who live together. For example, they are not officially registered. In the fourth tax class, you need to be officially registered, and then you can change your tax class. And by the way, I'm going to talk about changing the tax classes requirements at the end of this video. But before we are moving to the fifth tax class, that actually represents another partner in the marriage that earns little or nothing. In that case, the spouse, let's imagine, earns around 1,000 euro brutto per month, and it means that around 95 euro would be an income tax for this person, and after all the other compensations that the contributions that this person needs to do into the social program, the final compensation out of 1,000 brutto income per month would be around 690, 700 euro at the end. As I said, third and fifth category of tax classes are actually keeping the balance and trying to give the possibility to the more higher earner in the family pay less taxes, and in comparison to the total compensation, that would actually be a significant number at the end of the month. And for this person who earns less, to pay a bit more tax in the proportion side from the percentage side, but literally it's gonna be anyway the less monetized impact on the total household income. So as I said, it's a system developed in Germany many years ago that helps families who have disbalanced income to actually maximize their income as the whole married couple, as the one household. And the sixth category, tax class number 6 in Germany, it's for the multiple income streams. For example, in my case, I earn some money from YouTube, and I have to report all the income that I have from the YouTube based on the 6th tax class. And it ultimately means that from this additional income, regular income, one needs to pay the max amount of income taxes, because it's protecting again the system or the whole society from getting people who are rich and getting richer, and the poor people who poor and getting poor. So that's why whenever you do too much money, you need to pay too much taxes. In that case, if the person earns 5,000 euro on top of their regular job, for example, doing consulting or doing, I don't know, some side hustle, side business, and they earn 5,000 brutto euro per month, the income tax in this case would be around 1,340 euro per month. And after all the calculations with all the mandatory contributions needs to be done, it would be around 2,575 euro net income from this additional income stream. So that's why, as I said, the system works the way that the middle class stays in the middle and the poor getting more support and rich are paying more taxes. That's how, in a nutshell, German taxes are working. And actually, if you consider to change your tax classes, and if you see yourself potentially changing from one tax group, from one cohort of people to another, you need to know actually that since 2020, it's officially allowed to do multiple change throughout the year of the tax classes based on the conditions that are changing in your life. For example, in case of the official marriage, you need to do this after the official registration of your marriage. In case of the divorce, you actually need to apply all the changes to your tax class before January 1st of the following year, so the taxes are being calculated in the right way. In case of getting the kids, it's recommended to apply to the change of your tax classes 7 months in advance before your parental leave. So as soon as you actually figure out that you are expecting a baby, you need to go and register the change of the tax classes in Germany. That's all you need to know about the German bureaucracy, about the taxes. And overall, it's helpful to understand that the deadline to change the tax class is normally normally November 30 every year in order to see the changes reflected in the following year. So that's why keep it in mind, and remember that you can always apply the changes in the Elster online web portal, official representing the tax authority in Germany. And I hope this video was helpful for you. Let me know what other questions you have. Do not hesitate to click the subscribe button, and let's see each other in the other videos that are already available on my channel. Take care and see you very soon. Bye bye.